Welcome to the Connected Health Podcast, where we explore sustainable, holistic, and deeply human approaches to health. I'm your host, Vanessa Cohn, integrative health coach and nutritionist and personal trainer, and I'm here to help you reconnect to your body's wisdom, heal from the inside out, and build habits that last. Whether you're here to balance your hormones, reset your gut, reclaim your energy, or simply feel better in your body, you're in the right place. We are in the middle of a foundational habits series. And in past episodes, we talked about nutrition, mindset, and exercise. And today we're going to be talking about overlooked habits of rest and sleep. These are two separate health habits, but I wanted to combine them into one episode to really compare and contrast the two. Because when you hear the words sleep and rest, you think it's the same thing, but there's actually two different aspects of health within each of those habits. Let me give you a definition of what each of those are, and then we'll dive in deeper into what sleep and rest are separately, with action steps at the end for you to improve your sleep and rest habits. Let's define rest versus sleep. Rest is conscious, non-stimulating downtime while you're awake. So rest includes activities or restful activities to do while you're awake. It helps to calm your nervous system. It helps to reduce stress. Another way to think of it is active recovery. And it's not just doing nothing. Rest can be something that you are doing and you're using your mind and your body in an effort to create a restful space for healing and recovery in your body. Sleep, on the other hand, is when you're in bed at night. It's a biological and regenerative habit where your body heals, your brain stores your memories, your body detoxes and repairs. Really, the difference between rest and sleep is that rest happens when you're awake and sleep happens when you're asleep. Rest can be active and sleep can be passive. Let's talk about sleep first and why sleep matters. While you're sleeping, hormone production happens. Your stress hormone, cortisol, becomes regulated with your wake and sleep patterns. There are two main hormones that are in charge of sleeping and waking, and those are the hormones cortisol and melatonin. We talked about this in some past episodes, but basically, if I could make it as simple as I possibly can, at the beginning of the day, the cortisol levels are on the higher end, and as the day comes to a close, it starts to lower. And then melatonin starts low when your day begins and raises as your day ends to help you fall asleep. So what we call that is an inverse relationship between cortisol and melatonin. And when you have a nice, healthy, regular sleep and wake cycle, which means that the time that you go to sleep and the time that you wake up are around the same, that rhythm, a diurnal rhythm or a healthy sleep-wake cycle rhythm, is in good balance. If you're having trouble falling asleep at night or you're having trouble getting up in the morning, it's possible that there is an imbalance in those hormones and your system overall is dysregulated. Also, during sleep, your brain and body both detox, your metabolism and your blood sugar regulate, and if you haven't eaten anything right before sleep, you can actually tap into your fat stores and start burning energy there. During a normal sleep period, you progress through 4 to 5 sleep cycles. A sleep cycle is about 90 minutes long. And so when you wake up in the morning or you wake up in the middle of the night and you're in the middle of a sleep cycle, you actually feel groggy because you haven't completed that whole cycle. The 4 stages of sleep are broken up into REM sleep and non-REM sleep. And what happens in each of those categories is different. So the first 3 stages of the 4 of sleep actually happen during non-REM stages, and then REM has its own category. Stage 1 is when you're just dozing off and settling into sleep. It's typically pretty short in a normal cycle. Stage 2, the body and mind will slow down as you settle into a deeper stage of sleep. It's easiest to be awoken during those first 2 stages. Stage 3 is called deep sleep, and the body shifts into a recovery and restoration mode, which is deeper, which slows down your breathing, your heart rate to focus on other things. Your brain activity also slows down during stage 3, deep sleep. And then the fourth stage of sleep is actually called REM sleep. REM means rapid eye movement. During this stage, brain activity actually shoots up to levels as if you were awake. You will probably experience really intense and vivid dreams when you're in this stage of sleep. Also in REM, breathing and heart rate also increase, but your muscles are actually paralyzed so that you don't actually act out what you're experiencing from a physiological standpoint in your dreams. So each sleep cycle takes between 70 and 120 minutes. And in your first couple of sleep cycles throughout the night, most of your time is spent in non-REM sleep. And the majority of REM sleep happens in the second half of your sleep time. Your body's internal clock is called the circadian rhythm. You can also use the term diurnal rhythm, which basically means daily. Circadian means cycle. Our body has internal clocks, and we really like cycles and routines. So the wake and sleep cycle is also called the circadian rhythm. And upon natural rhythms and repeated rhythms, our body seems to work like clockwork. Certain hormones are released at certain times, and hormone levels will fluctuate during sleep and waking based on the roles that they play in your body. So, like I mentioned before, melatonin is going to be higher in the evening as you sleep. Cortisol is going to be lower. Growth hormone actually increases as you sleep because your body is recovering, growing, and repairing. And processing of memory can happen when you sleep as well. If you have problems sleeping, like you have insomnia, or you don't have a standard bedtime of when you go to sleep and when you wake up and it fluctuates, you might experience things like grogginess and tiredness throughout the day, exhaustion. You might feel like you need to have cup after cup of coffee. You might have more sugar cravings and bigger appetites because you're not recovering well. You might have trouble focusing, or you might fall asleep at inopportune times throughout the day. If you're not progressing through sleep cycles as you should, you're not going to get the proper rest, proper restoration that happens throughout the sleep cycles. It's really important to get your sleep and wake patterns on a regular routine to help ensure that your sleep patterns change so that you're in these cycles for the appropriate amount of time. And we're going to get into exactly how to do that. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about sleep disorders. So different sleep disorders can look like insomnia, narcolepsy, restless leg syndrome, and sleep apnea. I wanted to talk a little bit about sleep apnea, which is basically the idea that you're having trouble breathing as you sleep, and therefore your body is not able to get into a deeper state of sleep and you wake up frequently. Now, so many people have sleep apnea. And so what people will do is typically enroll in a sleep study where you'll get hooked up to all sorts of sensors and monitors to see how many times you're waking up as you sleep and what your biometrics like your heart rate and your breathing look like throughout the night. And based on these sleep studies, people might be prescribed a CPAP machine or maybe even a mouth guard. But I wanted to give people some alternative ways and methods of correcting this in ways that I don't typically hear. So there is a field of profession called airway dentistry and studying of the airway. If you are not getting enough oxygen in your body as you're trying to sleep, let's say you sleep with your mouth open. That's actually not the correct way to sleep, and you're not getting the most optimal amount of oxygen into your body with your mouth open as you sleep. If your mouth is open, generally there's not enough air getting in through your nose, which your body is then also deprived of oxygen. Now, people who breathe with their mouth primarily will have childhood structural changes in the development of their face and their nose and their jaw as they age to compensate for the lack of air not being able to get in through the nose. Proper breathing is done through the nose a majority of the time. And if you cannot adequately breathe in through your nose, I think it's important to get evaluated by an airway dentist or an airway professional. You can also have an ENT look at some of these things and evaluate, are your nasal passages wide enough to allow air in adequately? Do you have a deviated septum? Is there something like large tonsils getting in the way of air coming into your lungs? And other such situations. If you've got some sort of sleep issues, airway is one of the things that I would explore as well as your waking habits, your caffeinating habits, your eating habits, your exercise habits, to see what is contributing to the lack of the ability to sleep. Conditions like narcolepsy are brain sleep disorders. Your brain is not able to release the right amount of a certain neuron. It's an issue with the destruction of a neuron in your brain that helps you sleep and regulates the sleep and wake cycle. So that would merit exploration like autoimmune disease, autoimmune conditions, which is actually really tied to gut health and might have roots in past streptococcal infections, genetics, or specifically the H1N1 flu vaccine. All of those are related to causes of narcolepsy. All right, let's talk about how to improve sleep. Sleep hygiene is what we call this whole thing. It's a whole hygienic routine to make sure that your sleep is optimal. The goal is 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Women actually need more on the end of 9 to 10 because of our hormone fluctuations. We need more of that time to recover. It's optimal to keep your room dark, cool, and quiet. I would advise don't have a television on in your bedroom when you're trying to sleep. It's actually not great for you, and you won't have restful sleep when you watch a TV to fall asleep. If you can get some blackout curtains, set your thermostat down a couple degrees lower than normal. Anywhere from 65 to 69 degrees is actually optimal for sleep. Even if you might feel like that's too cold for you, you'll be safe and warm under the covers. And it does help your body temperature regulate so that you can get into deeper stages of sleep. It also helps to have a quiet place to sleep because if there's noise going on, that's going to distract your brain from starting to slow down processes and get into those deeper stages of sleep. Caffeine, if you have trouble sleeping and it's related to caffeine, among other things, I would recommend making a cutoff time for yourself. Maybe it's 12 o'clock, maybe it's 2 o'clock, but not having any caffeine after the afternoon can help your body start to regulate your melatonin and your cortisol to help you get to sleep. Screen time is a factor as well. If we're on our screens, like our phones, laptops, iPads, television, the screen emits a blue light frequency that is actually disrupting the release of melatonin. And melatonin is one of the big hormones that governs sleep. So if you're going to be looking at screens at night because of work, put on some blue light glasses, which are going to have lenses of a yellow-orange tint to protect your eyes from that blue light emission so that your hormones can continue a healthy pattern of release. Another tip I'll give you is to create a wind down routine. So I actually have an alarm on my phone that goes off to signal the start of my wind down routine. I'm going to start to wind down for the day, take my foster dog out for the night, take an evening shower, change, brew some tea, and sometimes I'll either read a book or journal to help myself wind down. Not looking at screens again, but just slowing the pace of the day down so that I can prepare my body for sleep. When it comes to supplements, I wanted to give you some recommendations there as well. One of my favorite supplements that almost anybody can take for good rest and sleep is magnesium. Magnesium glycinate helps your body relax and rest, so I would recommend that one. There are other ones that you can discuss with your health practitioner, like GABA, which is a neurotransmitter, and you can supplement that if that's something that your body specifically needs. Ashwagandha and L-theanine are other ones that help to calm down cortisol and invite rest into the body. And I'm a huge fan of herbal teas. Herbal teas are non-caffeinated. Something like chamomile, or there are sleepy time tea type of blends that you can have as well. All right, so that is sleep. Now I want to transition into talking about rest. The misconception about rest is that you're just laying down on your couch, not doing anything, maybe vegging out, scrolling on your phone, or watching television. And that's not restful because many parts of your brain and your senses are still being engaged. So even though your body's not physically moving, sometimes that stuff is not restful to your body. Rest is actually intentional time that is set aside to regulate your nervous system. I'll spare you the full breakdown of what exactly the nervous system is between the central and the peripheral nervous system. That could be an episode for another day, but I do love to talk about it. There are parts of your nervous system that control different things. Now, when I talk about nervous system and rest, I'm addressing what's called the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. These are part and underneath what's called the autonomic nervous system. And don't get tied down with all of the vocabulary, but basically the autonomic nervous system is in charge of involuntary functions. So you don't consciously think about what it takes for you to breathe, but it controls breathing, digestion, and heart rate. So that's what the autonomic nervous system is. And underneath that are two parts. That's the sympathetic, which you might have heard of because it's related to fight or flight. That's what raises your blood pressure or raises your heartbeat when you enter a stressful situation. And then the parasympathetic is the opposite of the sympathetic, and it brings everything back down to calm and peace. So there are two sides of a coin. Sympathetic drives up your energy in your body for either fight or flight response. And then the parasympathetic is rest and digest. So just remember those terms. Sympathetic, fight or flight. Parasympathetic, rest and digest. A lot of us spend a lot of time in that fight or flight state. We're stressed all the time. We have back-to-back meetings and activities and responsibilities, and we spend most of our day in that activated state. The parasympathetic nervous system's job is to bring us down to rest, and that's what we want to activate when we do these restful activities. Remember, rest is what you do while you're awake. So think about the things that you like to do that really just bring a sense of calm, big, full, deep exhale that makes you just feel relaxed. And this can be any of the hobbies that you really enjoy. Maybe you're gently walking and taking in your surroundings with just your eyes. You're not listening to a podcast or music. You're just in the moment. Maybe it's sitting in the sun as it rises on a quiet morning. Maybe it's grounding in nature. Maybe it's meditating. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's taking some time to do breath work, doing very gentle yoga, and practicing stretching with breathing. But parasympathetic nervous system activities can be things like hugging a loved one or a pet, anything that brings safety and calm, the things that we don't often make time for in our day. And why we need rest is because we have to bring our body back down to the baseline of rest and digest. Actually, what's going on in the body when you're in the fight or flight state, your blood vessels to your gut and your digestive system actually constrict. And they do that because it's sending more blood flow to the areas that will help you fight or flight, whether it is an actual physical threat or a perceived threat. Your body still goes into this response. You could just be running late and sitting in traffic, and your body's not in actual danger. Nothing is going to hurt you, but your body goes into this state. And so when blood flow is pulled away from the gut, your digestion can slow. It can give you some digestive issues like acid reflux. Your food doesn't digest very well, and you can have chronic diarrhea or chronic constipation. When we're so stressed all of the time, this is some of the stuff that can happen. It raises your stress hormone, cortisol. And when cortisol is raised, it impacts so many things like your sleep, your menstruation cycles if you're females, your weight as well. We are stressed a lot, but we also need to actively pursue rest. Long-term stress, we all know, has negative effects on us, so I won't go too much into that, but we feel burnout, fatigue, inflammation, weight gain, all of those things. So to actively combat the stress of our lives, we need to spend time in our schedules and put in activities that will activate the parasympathetic nervous system. This is where healing happens. Healing does happen when you sleep, but it can also happen when you're awake. So I wanted to give you some practical tips to integrate rest into your daily routine. You have to put it in your routine in order for you to see the value in it and reap the benefits in it. And some people might be thinking, oh, you have no idea what I have on my plate. There's no way I can schedule a few minutes to just breathe. Who does that? Who schedules time to breathe? Here's the thing. Let me give you a personal story. When I was sick several years ago and I was on the journey of healing, I actually actively pursued putting in parasympathetic activities for myself, and it made a world of a difference. I was so fatigued and so burned out. And yes, I know I need to do a podcast episode on my health journey, but I was so exhausted that I couldn't get off the couch. And as a part of my healing journey, scheduled instead of going to the gym and weightlifting and going out on runs like I wanted to do, like I used to be able to do, my physical activity was limited. I use quotes because it was frustrating at the time, but it was really exactly what my body needed. I was limited to walking and gentle yoga. And I would go to this trail where I lived almost every single day. And honestly, it was life-changing. The weather was beautiful. It was late spring, early summer. And I actually made those a part of my workout routine instead of what I used to do. And it made such a huge difference. For a while, I was frustrated that I couldn't do what I wanted to do, but it ended up being absolutely transformational and healing for me because on those walks, I took time to, because as an on-the-go person, which I am, I'm always on the go. I always have a destination. I naturally walk fast, even if I don't have to, because that's just the type of person I am. I'm pretty fast-paced, but these walks intentionally taught me a new pace of life, a new pace of slowing down. Especially the first few weeks of doing this, I actively had to struggle to slow down my pace. And as I did that, I found new trails to explore. I actually stopped and smelled the roses because I could see the nature around me and see the little details of little plants growing on the sides of the sidewalk when I went on my walks, and really just started to appreciate that and appreciate the sun hitting the leaves and the little animals that I would see here and there, chipmunks and deer. It was eye-opening to this whole part of the world and life that I would just ignore and not appreciate otherwise. And then when it comes to the gentle yoga that I did some guided YouTube yoga videos, and there was a lot of emotional healing that happened through those practices as well, because the teacher that I followed would do gentle stretching paired with breathwork and journaling, and like slowing down actually gave me time and space to work through some difficult emotions and traumatic events in my life. So it wasn't just a physical healing. It was an inside out, head to toe, brain to nerve endings type of healing. And it was fantastic. That's my little experience with it. But yes, it is absolutely transformational. And it's so hard at first, especially if you're a fast-paced type of person. It's really hard. I'm going to give you some tips on integrating rest daily. Now, this is going to look different for everyone. And I want you to take these suggestions and figure out what works for you. If you're not a slow down, relaxed, calm type of person, maybe you're a little bit more type A, very much an overachiever, or you like to do things, this is going to be a struggle integrating this habit at first. But I want you to push through that struggle, to do your best day by day by day, even if it's not perfect, because you will get over that hump and you will start to catch on to what these practices can do for you and your health and your life. And it's going to be so worth it to your healing. Because guess what? There is a correlation between type A personalities, go-getters, people who have experienced trauma, and chronic health issues. There is a correlation there because there's not enough of parasympathetic activation. So the body is always dealing with inflammation or threats, whether it's real or perceived. So let's get down to it. Integrate rest daily. I'm going to give you a few different ideas. Try one, try a few. But if you do have a lot on your plate and a pretty hectic schedule, what I want you to do is schedule micro rest breaks. Micro rest means even 3 to 5 minutes, just stepping away from whatever you're doing and go outside, get some direct sun on your skin. or sit down on the floor and do some deep breathing, meditation, close your eyes, and reconnect your mind and your body. Sometimes we're all up in our heads and we forget that the rest of our body is asking for recognition and peace and safety and comfort and rest, that we just push through and ignore it. So transparently, judge me for it if you want to, but one of the things that I like to do is just lay on the floor, lay on my back on the floor, and just spread my arms out and just take a few deep breaths. That's one thing you could do, a micro rest break of some kind. Fill it in with something that you find relaxing. Whatever you decide to do, make sure it's not overstimulating. When you think of stimulating, it's usually stimulating your visual sense, your auditory sense, your tactile sense. Think of the 5 senses. You want to make whatever activities you choose to be not stimulating, which means usually on the quieter and calmer end of things. So go to a quiet place. You want to invite things like calm, peace, silence. That's why it's important to get into a quiet place, maybe even close your eyes. You can integrate rest into your day with routines and rituals. So you can have something calming and relaxing in your morning routine and something calming and relaxing in your evening routine. Some of the stuff that I listed when I gave you sleep routine suggestions can also be used for your parasympathetic activity suggestions. Things like gentle stretching, journaling, meditation. Those are the things you do before you sleep to get your body primed for sleep. And then you can also use them in rest activities. Put them at the beginning and at the end of your day. Maybe if you have a pretty busy schedule, you might even want to take a midday parasympathetic ritual. So perhaps on your lunch break, you go outside for 10 minutes, get some sunlight, and take some deep breaths in a relaxed position. And even with these tips that I'm giving you, if there's any resistance coming from your mind that says, how is this even possible? Ask yourself this question: where can I insert rest within the hustle? Because realistically, you aren't going back to back to back. Realistically, there are tiny pockets of space where you can just reset, close your eyes, breathe, and go about your day. Stupid, as silly, as insignificant as it may sound to you, this is actually really important. I've done it myself. That's how I know it works. It has transformed my healing journey to just feel more like a human being and less like a human doing, to incorporate some of these practices in my life. Now, here's another action step that I want you to take. I want you to come up with a menu of parasympathetic rest activities that you like to do. So take anything that I've listed and suggested, make a menu of the things that you enjoy, like maybe it's reading, maybe it's knitting, maybe it's playing an instrument, maybe it's singing, maybe it's playing with an animal. Any of these things that are restful for you, make a list of it, and that's going to be your menu. And then your challenge would be to every single day pick one piece of dessert or sweetness off of that menu to be a part of your day. And remember, it doesn't have to be a whole half-hour long block. Even tiny pockets of time that you have can be used for parasympathetic restful activities. Something else that I do frequently is when I'm commuting and I'm stuck in traffic is I can't really close my eyes. I'll turn off the music or podcast in my car, and I'll just put my hand on my chest and start to breathe deeply and fully. If your breaths are shallow, that means you're not getting enough oxygen into your lungs and your posture is actually affecting that. So straighten up your back, take a deep breath in, hold it for a few seconds, and exhale. And try and focus on making your exhale a little bit longer than your inhale. One of the breathing exercises that I give to my clients is 4-5-6 breathing. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 5 counts, exhale for 6 counts. 4, 5, and 6. Take that with you and insert that into a 3 to 5 minute pocket of rest that you have in your day. And I promise you, it makes a huge difference. It physiologically calms your blood sugar, your heart rate, and your mental stress down. If you try it, Let me know how it goes. So that's the difference between rest and sleep. One you do while awake and one you do while sleeping. And this helps to overall help your body combat stress and recover from the events of the day. Both of these are non-negotiables if you want to have a healthy, happy, and balanced body. I gave a lot of suggestions, but remember, start with one rest practice daily from the menu and then upgrade your sleep by picking one area of sleep hygiene to improve. Start small and build upon that. I wanted to give you one success story from one of my clients. We worked together in the health coaching capacity on some weight, autoimmune, and sleep issues. And this client had struggled most of her life, but we made some slow and steady changes in the area of sleep hygiene. And to this day, she says she slept better than she has in most of her life. And she hits those optimal targets of deep sleep and REM sleep every night when she tracks on her fitness tracker. And even after we stopped working together, it's the same. She's learned how to upgrade her sleep hygiene so that she's hitting healthy, happy sleep and she feels rested every single day. And I want to say this final closing message to the people like me, the people who are go-getters, and there's a small part of them that believes that rest is a luxury. It's not. Your body is, well, first of all, you're a human being, not a human doing. You do deserve time to just exist and breathe and connect to that breath. And rest is productive. This is a lesson that I've had to learn time and time over again. So be gentle with yourself. Practice. You will get better at it. Just remember that these are not rewards. They are requirements. They're what you deserve. It's what you need. And you can also have good rest and sleep, even if you've never had it before. If this spoke to you, I want you to commit to one new rest or sleep habit this week. If you end up doing it and you want to share it with me, you can shoot me an email at vanessa@connectedhabits.com. You can tag me at Connected Habits Coaching on Instagram, or you can send me a message there or on Facebook, Connected Habits Coaching. Until next time, stay rested, empowered, and stay connected. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Connected Health Podcast. If you found any value in today's conversation, I would love for you to share it with a friend, subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and please leave a review on platforms like Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And it helps more people find this kind of healing. There are so many people out there struggling with health problems, and they might not have the right answers, but I want to be able to get this information into as many people's hands as possible. And that can be done when you share the value that you find here with other people. Your health is in your hands, one connected habit at a time. See you next time.